Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from for this. Welcome to our Coda webinar, where we're joined today by two gentlemen from Decom Engineering. Sean Conway, so I'm going to introduce them by the way I'm seeing them on my screen. So Sean is on my left. So Sean is a founding member of Decom Engineering. He's held the CEO role since incorporating in 2011. Sean steered the organisation's growth initiatives and expansion into new markets globally, placing Decom Engineering as front-runner provider of pipe cutting and coating removal solutions across the decommissioning industry. And Sean is joining us from Bali today. So he's, at least for us in Western Australia, he's at least in our same time zone. And coming to us from the delightfully warm weather in Scotland or Ireland is Nick McNally. So Nick has been at the helm of Decom Engineering's commercial growth since 2018, with a primary focus on the finance, legal and operational areas. He's a qualified chartered accountant, having trained with Ernst & Young in audit and corporate finance. He brings let's try that one again, brings a passion for innovation through working writing R&D tax credit narratives for many years. It's not often you hear someone talk about having a passion for writing R&D tax credit narratives, so good on you, mate. He has an extensive background of leading companies across many industries to successful fruition and continues to deliver Decom Engineering's growth track record. So the gentlemen have joined us today to talk specifically about their new C1-46 chop saw, but more broadly also to talk about the technologies that they've got and the organisation itself. So, look, without any more ado, I'll hand over to you gentlemen to crack on. Oh, sorry, there is one other thing that I meant to mention. If you've got questions for either of the chaps, if you want to enter them into the Q&A session as we go, once we get to the end of the presentation, we'll then go through and work through as many of those questions as we can. The questions that we don't get to, we'll forward on to Decom Engineering for them to hopefully respond to in writing as a follow up to this episode. So, over to you, gentlemen, and I'll let you get on with it.
Thank you, Francis. Really appreciate the opportunity to present today. Presenting to yourselves, Coda, you've definitely helped us eye up the Australia market and the pivotal role that you guys play within that to help small to medium-sized businesses find their feet in new markets. Decom Engineering was formed in 2011, initially as a family R&D engineering business in Ireland. Quickly, we started to put a lot of time and effort into our cutting solutions, both topside and subsea. The first couple of years within Decom, we spent a lot of time in the R&D sector. So at around about 2018, we took on some equity investment. We had a lot of proof points within our business. We'd created another product range. At that stage, Nick McNally, our commercial director, came on board. And from about late 2018, myself and Nick have ran the growth of Decom to where it is now, which we consider ourselves one of the leading subsea offshore cutting contractors. And then sort of ethos of our business is to create sort of the green life cycle and carbon capture of the subsea infrastructure, which we help in some small part to take out. We move that on to our other product range, which can then be cleaned and recycled, which we'll talk about later in the slides, to be reused in other industries. And Nick has played a pivotal role in that. Nick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi everybody, I'm Nick. I'm the commercial director at Decom Engineering. So as Sean and Francis mentioned, I joined about 2018. Worked in a variety of different industries and have been really enjoying learning about decommissioning and what's been going on there. And it's been a steep learning curve, first time in engineering. It's been very exciting, and obviously with what's going on in Australia, it's an ideal time for us to sort of come through that. Just going to share my slides here, Sean, for you.
Thank you.
Can you see those okay, Sean?
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Nick. So yeah, as I mentioned, we initially started in 2015. I actually stumbled upon the product and the idea whilst I was still in university in University College Dublin. That quickly changed and gathered a bit of pace whenever we decided to make a business out of this. Obviously, like all small businesses and early startups, slow going at the start, you're learning a lot, but a key message that you'll see throughout is we're very keen to listen to our clients, our customer base, the market, and that's really helped us shape our products and what we stand for. So in 2012, we created the chop saw range, predominantly for topside. Didn't want to challenge ourselves too much to try and go subsea right off the bat, but spent the first 3 to 4 years R&D, going to offshore Europe, traveling throughout Europe and even into the Gulf of Mexico, getting feedback on where the market's at and where we could fit. That actually led us to another product, another opportunity. Being a young, hungry company, we took that on in 2014-15, and we established a pipe coating removal system. We deployed that in the UK, Middlesbrough, and ran that for about 2.5 years with a client there, and processed about 6,000 tons of predominantly prime surplus material with 3-layer coating, but there was some decommissioned material there too. So early on, we started to join the dots and seeing if we can remove the infrastructure in a sustainable and efficient manner, and we can put it onto a process, how can we then allow the asset owners to see that full life cycle? We kept on with the chop saw range, developing a larger product, and obviously a lot of lessons learned. We deployed a machine into Germany on a topside quicksilver pipeline removal job, and we also got the opportunity to manufacture and deploy a pipe coating removal system into a pipe mill in Egypt in 2018. During this time, we'd also established a joint venture with a Dutch company who we still do a lot of business with to this day for pipe coating removal. So in early 19, we installed that equipment near the Belgian border, and we processed about 22,000 tons of surplus prime material and a lot of decommissioned stock. So we were able to take a lot of data of the sort of integrity of the pipe, how it was handled, the different coatings, internal, external, and just the various different technical specifications of the pipe we were handling. And we learned a lot. Around 2018 as well, I had been approached to take on some equity investment in the business. I met the investment partners, Cordovan Capital, got on very well. They understood the vision that we had, where we wanted to get to, and I felt that they were the right partner to make that a reality. And I'm glad to say that we're still partners to this day, and they've backed us every step. One of the key things I wanted to introduce to the business was a commercial director, because I wasn't so sharp on the commercials. So I met Nick at the same time. We hit it off. We got on very well. We seen business a very similar way, and yeah, it worked. And so I've never looked back. So we came on and we've ran the business since, as I've said. Nick, do you want to take it on from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks very much, Sean. So obviously, when I joined, Sean was in the midst of the pipe coating removal deployment to the Middle East. He was stuck in Egypt, getting food poisoning and all the fun things that come with deploying machines in Egypt. And we had a chance to take the feedback from a couple of offshore sort of pilot jobs that we'd done, subsea with the saw, and also the onshore stuff, and basically finish off the market. It told us that they needed a model that was up to 2 to 24 inch, whereas our initial prototype was 2 to 12 inch. So we'd taken certain bits of feedback from the market and finished off all of our patents and our development, and came to the market in sort of 2019, and looked at the jobs and went out to Aberdeen and rented a space and did a whole bunch of demos. And quite interestingly, and I think it's nice that we're past this stage now, but quite interestingly, we had the same problem. So everybody came along and said, yep, I can see why you're faster in better diamond wire saws. I can see the advantage over shears. That's great. They really like seeing the cuts in person. And everybody asked the same question, what's your track record? Because no one wants to be the first one to throw it over the side of a vessel without having a track record. So bit of a chicken and egg and scenario, but we ended up winning a job with Subsea 7. And Chevron and Shell. So we'd done a sort of small job with the Gulf of Thailand with Chevron, but we ended up winning a large job with Subsea 7 where they had a production spool. So they had a duplex production spool. You can see it in one of our examples that we can share after this. But effectively, shears had failed and diamond wire saw was going to take about 8 hours a cut. It was a large production spool, thick duplex, thick PU coating, ventilation, and it was going to be really, really difficult. We cut it in 25 minutes, right in front of the faces, and they said, "Yep, do it again, 25 minutes." And 10 days later, we were 160 meters deep, working with Subsea 7 on shell penguins. That was a real kick forward for us. We'll talk about some of these projects in more detail as we go through, but that effectively led on to customers having the confidence around our products. So we had a 12-inch and a 24-inch, and we ended up winning a large scope of work with James Fisher Offshore for Chevron with the 2 saws. And we always had a couple of unique USPs. Sean will talk about the real technical USPs, but there's 2 elements, and actually the first 2 jobs proved them both. Firstly is we can cut stuff other technologies can't cut, particularly thick PU coatings and duplex, things that dime wire saws and shears really, really struggle with. That's one USP. The other, which is huge for us, in which the first major job we did clarified, was the number of cuts per blade, and therefore the saving in vessel time from that. That is absolutely huge, because what you're doing, wherever you need a clean cut, or even we're now comparable cycle time to shears, it's all about the vessel time saved. And so what we ended up doing is we launched around November 2020, I think it was, with Chevron 2019. And by December time, we had proven the fact that we had between 30 and 70 cuts per blade, X60 concrete coated pipelines, and it was in the water, and it was cut. So all of a sudden, it was proving the robustness that, yes, the saw can cut really well. It can do 5 cuts. The shell job was only a few cuts. Can it cut day in, day out, throw in a splash zone, in and out? Will it be reliable over weeks and months? And that was the case. And that led us on to basically winning another long scope. So come sort of only 2 months after our first job, we built 2 more saws. We suddenly had 4 saws operating. From there, we landed a number of different jobs, but a couple of what we would call kind of real game changers for us, moving us forward. And again, we'll touch on them later on. But we won a job with Havram and Petronas off the coast of Mauritania. That was the first time we'd gone to 1,000 meters deep. Again, we'd done all our testing in hyperbaric chambers. We knew everything was spec'd up for it, but you still need someone to take you for the first time. Within that job, not only did we cut Rovcon connectors, which again were duplex and with heavy plastic coatings, PU coatings, but we also cut mooring chain and we cut umbilical. So within one job, we ticked off mooring chain, umbilical, really complex, difficult cuts with a 50-ton bending moment, and we had to redesign our clamps for doing that, and Sean touched on that later on. But we also did this at 1,000 meters water depth, powered off an ROV. We also got a great job with Allseas, cutting loose multi-string conductors on the Gida platform on the Pioneering Spirit. Those were a couple of really big movers for us. Another big job with Total Energies doing IRM work to recover production unit, again, because they'd gone out with diamond wire saws and shears and had failed to cut it. And we came in and couldn't get visas, ran it remotely over WhatsApp through the ROV room on the vessel on Boxing Day, really meeting our clients' needs and moving forward. So it moved us on from saying, yeah, we know our saw can cut. Now, can we deliver complex projects? And really that's brought us through to today and what we'll touch on shortly, which is the next major element we've done at the final end of these milestones. So launching our 46-inch chop saw with Deep Ocean and Shell in the Brent Charlie fields to take effectively the concrete coated pipe cuttings that we've done in Chevron and scale them up, because that's a real problem. And we'll touch on that later on. And then with James Fisher Offshore in Taiwan, cutting renewable cables. So starting to take the fact that we can cut flexi risers, the fact that we can cut power umbilicals, and taking it into the renewables market. So that it's been a rapid growth, and we'll touch on some of those for more examples. But Sean's the technical guy out of the two of us, so I'll hand back to you, Sean, for take you through the technical differences of our saw.
Cheers. Yeah, as Nick says, it has been such a rapid growth from about 2019. We've took our fleet from 2 saws to 14, and during that production run, we wanted to make sure that the actual integrity and the brand and the qualities of our equipment were brought through all of our units. So we have 3 12-inch saws, 8 24s, and 1 46-inch. All of them have similar features throughout the brand. 2,000 meters plus water depth. A clutch mechanism if you hit a difficult spot, if you hit a weld or you hit a bit of tension, or if you hit a different type of coating, we have an anti-stall mechanism and a clutch mechanism fitted to all of our kit, which allows the blade to cut its way through the hard spot, but needing no intervention from the ROV or the operator. We have a wide variety of applications. The saws are modular in design, so if you have a 50-ton bending moment, as Nick mentioned, or if you want to cut mooring chain and it's all happening on the same deployment, a lot of it's modular. You can add in new clamps. We can support on the design and fabrication pre-deployment to kit you out with exactly what you need for all eventualities. The only thing that really changes is obviously the size and scale, and all the kit will show efficiencies when it comes to cutting standard steel carbon pipelines, mooring chain, flexible risers, umbilicals, and all things in between. You can do this with the one blade, the one setup, the one machine, and this, depending on what you're cutting and how hard it is, some of the more exotic materials, as you can appreciate, will reduce the blade life, but you'll get between 3 and 60 cuts per blade per deployment. Do you want to move on, Nick?
Yeah. I'll touch on some of the other sort of elements and particularly the commercial elements. So price is obviously key, and price for our customers doesn't particularly come through the day rate. If I'm perfectly honest, it comes through looking at the job as a holistic piece. So we have a low consumable cost, and yeah, that is significant, against down wire saws. So which would be, down wire saws and shears are our main competitors. You get, for example, as I say, between 30 and 60 cuts per blade on X60 concrete coated pipeline. Obviously with duplex, that's maybe reducing to 5 to 10 cuts, depending on the thickness of duplex. That is a saving cost. The cost of a blade is about the same as a wire, but to be perfectly honest, that's not materially going to move somebody's numbers on this job, on jobs. It's the deployment time. It's the fact that once you're deployed in the water for your shift, be that 10, 12 hours, that you'll cut and move, cut and move, cut and move. Good example being with the 46-inch at the moment in the water. They're having to dredge around certain spots. Bad weather came in. It was fit for the ROV, not fit for the chop saw. So the ROV was ahead. It was clearing. It was doing all the dredging. It was doing everything. And then as soon as the weather cleared, they could put the saw in and go chop, chop, chop all the way along. And after 5 cuts, they caught up with the dredging. You just can't do that with other technologies. You'd have to come back up, or your cut cycle would be difficult. So that's a massive one. Safety is huge. Obviously, your blade isn't exposed, so you've got an opportunity for that. As Sean says, we've never, ever got stuck in a cut. And that is a huge thing. So there's never any diver intervention. You're never going to get stuck coming trying to intervene. The fact that we can reverse the blade and effectively come out and restart again if you do hit a pinch point or a difficult point, or for some reason for safety you want to abandon the cut, then that's absolutely huge for us. But also safety on deck. Even with the 46-inch saw, for example, we were aware that the large blade might be difficult to change, and Sean will touch on it later on, but we actually looked at replaceable tips so that we can reduce the manual handling on the vessel. Versatility is an absolutely huge benefit. So the fact that we can cut through concrete with rebar, flexi risers, renewable umbilicals, oftentimes in the Gulf of Thailand, the guys can't even see the pipeline. They're going right through the mud line. They're just going down, grabbing it, lifting up and cutting it. And there's no tooling change. The only thing you need to do occasionally is change the V-blocks to get a better cut. And that's really only if you're doing a lot of cuts. You'll get away with 1 or 2 cuts just with the standard V-block. But if you were doing lots and lots of mooring chain in one go, you would want to change that slightly. And then efficiencies, say. So we'll touch on it later on. But effectively, our timings are far less than an inch a minute. It does depend, obviously, duplex, you tend to go a bit slower. It depends on the importance of keeping the blade life there as well. So Sean, this was the subsea 7 job I was talking about. So you can see here the production spool. So any of you that have got experience in this, you'll understand why down wire saw struggles in terms of the PU coating clogging it up and the duplex causing potential for snap wires or stuck wires. The shears they had actually thought would work, but what happened with the shears is it wasn't the duplex shears struggled with, it was the PU coating. So what happened is as they were coming through this PU coating, as they were coming through and they were getting near the end, it just couldn't break through. There was just too much compression there. And you can see from there deployment with an airbags. It's actually the only job we've ever done since with deployment with airbags. We've mostly done either buoyancy units or off the crane, or in the case of Havron, we actually just left the saw sitting under its own weight because we had a secondary clamping system. So that's that just gives you a few images for the job that we still remember fondly, in the sense of really moving us forward as a business to give an A-grade client and a comfort to everybody else that the kit can do what it talks about. So sure, I'll let you talk about, you're heavily involved in the Havram Patronus job.
Yeah, cheers. So we were approached on March last year to work on a subsea ROVCOM connector with the inner duplex with a PU coating and an external X65 25 to 30 mil wall external pipe at an angle with a 50-ton bent moment. And that was the main focal point of the 24-inch saw deployment. It was at about 800 to 850 meters of water depth. There were 16 cuts to be done. Time was critical. We did a lot of pre-deployment tests. We took it to the hyperbaric chamber. We put it in the test tank. One of the things we like to do with our clients is, with the engineering team that we have, we can mock up the structure, mock up the cut, make sure there's no clearance issues. We actually found there was a clash, so we were able to provide slimmer clamps. Another thing that we were able to do is actually, as best we could, build the cut piece accurately so that we could cut that for the client, Patronus, and obviously for our contracted client, Havram, to show them the efficiencies, albeit in a testing environment, but to give them that comfort. So we got past the testing relatively headache-free. Obviously, we had to make a few tweaks, but that's what we like to do. We're engineers by trade, and we like to solve problems. So that went offshore. We supplied technicians. We cross-hired auxiliary equipment to support the project. So we were the main cutting contractor on the vessel. We carried out all 16 ROVCOM cuts. We were averaging 3 to 4 cuts per blade. So what that meant was each asset could be disconnected with one deployment, which inevitably saved days off the vessel time. We were also challenged, which was discussed, but fundamentally wasn't in the remit of scope, to cut mooring chain and then umbilical. Obviously, we were more than happy to provide those capabilities because we back our saw. We know what it can achieve. We were then challenged to make the cuts on the chain, often below the mud line, often under tension. We made the cuts 10, 15 cuts per blade on studless mooring chain. We then had the opportunity to cut the umbilical, which you see in the middle picture, and they were struggling with the ROV grinder, and they were getting about 1 cut per every 30, 40 minutes. They had about 100 of these cuts to make. We went down and we made a cut per minute, and we made 72 cuts per blade. So we saved around about 6 or 7 days vessel time in that specific cutting application alone. And then, Nick, if you want to flick on to the next example, next case study, please. And then from that project, we were also running live projects in the Gulf of Thailand. So across the Gulf for Chevron and PTTEP, we have operated on, I think at this stage, 6 projects. We're booked in for another 3 across various contractors, which we have a close relationship with. We currently have 8 assets in the region. We have just done about 2,500 cuts, mostly on concrete coated pipelines. And a lot of the concrete coating has the rebar reinforcement, typically between 8, 12, 16-inch OD. This is where we could really get into the detail on efficiencies, blade life, how do we improve our saw, and how do we just make it the go-to for large pipeline decommissioning projects. So great opportunity for us to improve, get better blades, and just understand, are we hitting our targets? Can we do anything better? And look, we're now hitting 30 to 50 to 60 cuts per blade, and typically we're staying right on track, and we're now the preferred supplier with the Chevron guys out there for their decommissioning projects on the pipelines. And then if you just go to the next slide, it shows 2 other areas of the industry which we're looking to break into, and we've had the opportunity to work on live projects. So on the right hand side is a project that I was on with a couple of our guys on the GIDA platform for Repsol. We were on the Pioneer Spirit, and we brought a 24-inch chop saw to cut the 20-inch OD multi-string conductors. We had planned that the conductors were going to be grouted, but in eventualities, there was no grout in the conductors, which means there's loose strings whilst making the cut. We made successful cuts on those strings, give us a great opportunity to, again, improve and see where we could add efficiencies to the client on a topside cut. And then the left-hand side, and Nick could maybe talk on the renewables a bit more myself, we got an opportunity to look at cutting cable for the renewable wind farms. And so we've deployed it on several scopes in Taiwan, and we've making cuts in around 4-6 minutes per cut and multiple cuts per blade. And the key thing is the cuts are clean. So if there is a repair work to be done on a cable, it can at least then be worked on to repair it and put a field joint in so it can be reused.
Yeah, I think it's really key, and it'll lead on to the rationale for the 46-inch saw, is that anybody who's listening today or does listen to this webinar in future, if you've got a problem, approach us. We will do our best to tell you quickly whether we can solve it or whether we believe we can solve it. So renewables is a good example how it came about from the desire to cut flexies and the desire to cut umbilicals. We had a lot of interest in that, and actually for a long time we struggled. So Sean talked about our anti-clutch mechanism. So we very much view ourselves as an R&D firm, consistent R&D. We're always improving the product. The saw looks identical to how it did previously, but we made a few big changes. What happens with the clutch mechanism is effectively when the blade stalls and you've got a lot of tension, the blade stalls, both initially the feed stalls, the blade continues to turn, and if there's a lot of pressure, then what will happen is actually the feed will stop and the rotation will stop as well. What that meant is whenever you had flexies or you had umbilicals or you had renewable power cables, you would stall. So as soon as the tension release and the twisted cables and depending on the material, whatever it was, would release, you stall the blade. So you were just stalling constantly. Every time a wire release, you would stall. So we spent a lot of time changing our lead screws, changing our motors, adjusting our pressures, adjusting the way that system works, that eventually we were able to do initially with the HAVRAM job. That was where we really tested it out for the first time, cutting umbilicals. But then we went back after that success and perfected it for flexi risers and perfected cables. And that meant we could come and push into renewables. So it was about understanding our clients' needs, that they said, look, actually, when we need a clean cut on cables, or even when we just are down there and we don't want to be mobbing two pieces of kit, you need to have that versatility, because more and more, particularly in the Australian market, there's going to be a lot of flexi risers to come out, and we've got to be able to have that capability to be able to compete. So really glad to say we've got that now. We can share a cut register with anybody that details the timings for different flexi risers that we've done. But that led on to the 46-inch saw. So Sean and I had a meeting with Deep Ocean well over a year ago now, and they came to us basically because the client needed an ability to cut 36-inch pipe with 3-inch concrete wall. That was the challenge. They knew what we'd done in the Gulf of Thailand. They knew that, we've gotten to the point now in the Gulf of Thailand where RFQs go out saying 2 times chop saw, not 2 times other technologies. It's proven. It's the acceptable method. It saves a huge amount of vessel time. And they approached us and said, look, we've got this job coming up next year. Now, obviously, commercially, there was a partnership there whereby they gave us the commitment to a large scope of work this summer that we needed. There's only so long investors will sit there and let you do unfunded R&D. Obviously, it sounds simple to scale up, but that wasn't that simple. We need the full saw. Obviously, it was new and complex, needed to be fully DNV certified as alongside all of our other kit. We needed to have the ability to still rapidly customize our clamps to keep these key features of a 24-inch saw, which wasn't easy as you go up to this big, to keep the structural integrity, to keep the DNV certification of all of the lifting points, of all of the structural integrity of the saw with what you're handling, getting through the splash zone, to keep that, but still allow something that's as modular as the clamps to be changeable is key. And Sean will talk about how that really helped us for seeing that on the job. Hot stab integration, even with our top side, even though we go down umbilicals, lots of jobs are either hot stabs or umbilicals. With Deep Ocean, they do both. So we needed to be able to have both, and obviously that was key for us anyway. A safe and robust landing frame. So the 24-inch doesn't need a landing frame, just comes back onto deck. With this saw, it's a bit of a beast, as you can see here in the pictures. So we had to have a custom bumper frame and design all of that. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, sort of try and reduce deck handling, talk to our blade suppliers, look at the way we do blades and see is there any way to reduce the deck handling. You know, overall, we've developed the ability to cut up to 46-inch. So particularly in the North Sea market where this first build was for, we looked at basically 46-inch will cover us for the vast majority. So although the job it was developed for was 42-inch, we can go up to 46-inch. Similar as the 24-inch, so qualified up to 3,000 meters in terms of its parts, fast and clean cuts, market-leading cut times, very operator-friendly control panel. And actually, that's something to touch on across our kit. If people can run similar kit or offshore kit, they can run our kit. Some of the beauty of our kit is in its simplicity. Simple to maintain and operate, and really, really crucially, the guys can use similar back deck spreads across different kit. So, for example, a 24-inch, it's only 110 bar and 200 liters flow. So you can really get through. So 120 liters flow. You can really get through and work with a lot of different HPUs and reelers. Comes with a full shipping cage and comprehensive spares. As Sean will mention shortly, we can suit different surroundings and structures by changing the clamps and other areas, and multiple lifting points as well. We ended up coming through with this, and you can see what we ended up doing within the blade tips here. It's probably hard to see, but effectively these are segmented tips. So instead of having one blade, which is effectively one use, and once the teeth are broken or damaged, or a certain number of them, there's normally about 120 to 180 teeth on a blade. So once you hit anywhere between 30 and 70% of the tips being damaged, depending on the level of the damage, you have to change that blade out and scrap that blade or resharpen that blade and come back to put a new one in. With the 46-inch, obviously such a big blade, 2.8 meters diameter blade, handling it's very difficult. So although we do have some traditional blades as well, we introduced a new technology on this job, which is segmented blades. So it's replaceable blade tips. So if you come out of a job at the end of a shift and there's 10 damaged tips, you just take those 10 damaged tips off and put 10 on. And it really, really, again, it's all about saving that vessel time straight onto the night shift, straight back down again as well. So that's been really, really key. We obviously do fat tests for clients. Less and less we're needing to do those, particularly where it's new and complex. We like to give both ourselves and the clients every confidence that we're going to go and do the job. It was quite a big one for the 46-inch. We did testing with our 46-inch and our 24-inch to go off on these first jobs with Deep Ocean. So, Sean, I'll let you run point, because then Sean was actually offshore on the jobs as well.
Yeah, could you
play here?
Yeah, so we did a video of the fat test in Aberdeen for the client, and obviously for a couple of key clients. So we wanted to do make a bit of noise about this large investment we made in the kit, and yeah, ideal opportunity just before it goes offshore. So yeah, after this short video, I'll talk you through the recent deployment. Cheers, Nick. I think one of the key things to take away from that video, and obviously we're more than happy to share as much data as anyone requires, is that we fundamentally really take pride in the equipment we manufacture. We take pride in presenting it to clients. We love the challenge of that clients present us with in terms of cutting materials and different orientations. And one such client was Deep Ocean. And we really appreciate the backing that they put into Decom, but also seeing the other benefits that our current 24 and 12-inch saws had, and challenged us with the opportunity to scale it up. Now, I've told our engineers many times that it's just as simple as scaling it up, but I've been told many times that it's not just that simple. So we had to go and do it and prove it, and we did the fat tests, went successfully. I was fortunate enough to be invited on to the Deep Ocean and Shell project on the North Yarnstein. I was there for just under 3 weeks. Fantastic to see the kit going live. It helps myself and Nick really understand where we can invest more in the business to make life for our client better, make the improvements to our kit, make life for our guys better. So to that end, we set about working on the Brent Charlie subsea infrastructure. We started off with multiple cuts on the 24-inch saw, which were successful, and then we moved to the 46. There was a hard seabed, which didn't allow us to get proper clamping. So what we tend to do is send as many engineers as technicians on the project as possible. So whilst we were live on the project, we were able to redesign a new set of clamps that were slimmer, which would allow for the ROV to do much less dredging. And you can appreciate, 36-inch OD pipeline with 3-inch coating. It takes quite a lot of mass to dredge underneath that pipe structure. We had these designed and fabricated and picked up within 3 days. We had them installed and back on the 46-inch saw, back in the water within 24 hours. And then we were able to vastly reduce dredging time, vastly reduce ROV input. And then we have made, I think to date, and the guys are still on the project, 60 plus cuts. And we're getting a lot of use out of the segmented tips. So the core of the blade has not changed. The guys are removing the tips when the saw comes to surface. We're typically seeing 5 to 6 cuts per shift on a 36-inch concrete coated pipeline. The cut times vary between 20 and 40 minutes per cut. And as you can see here on the left-hand side, the clean cut profile really helps with norms, testing, contamination, and then, which Nick will talk about later, bringing that large pipe infrastructure onshore, putting it onto a pipe coating removal system, removing the coating, and leasing a new lease of life for that piece of equipment. With the 24-inch on that project, we also cut duplex pipelines, we cut mooring chains and flexible risers, as well as umbilicals. So it just shows that between two pieces of equipment, the versatility that we were able to offer Deep Ocean, and yeah, they're a fantastic company to work with. As I say, they've been very supportive, but we look forward to working with them on various things in the future. And then from there, assessing where we've gone from 2018 right up until now, you can really see the trend of where our equipment's getting used. And then we decided that the Asia Pac region was really working for us. A couple of really good clients, fantastic projects. So around about September, November last year, we invested in coming to the region in Perth. We had a few visits with clients, some of which we already knew and had engaged with, some of which were new. And pretty quickly, we were back in Perth in March this year, and we brought over a 24-inch chop saw. We exhibited at the AOG show, and then we carried out a week of demos, which Coda helped and were assisting with and came along. That really helped us see the market opportunities in Australia. And from there, we have secured 3 projects, which will be kicking off in Australia in the next couple of weeks. And to be honest, we're just really excited about completing them and bringing more kits and setting up more of a permanent base in the Asia Pac region. It's definitely somewhere we see, people put their money where their mouth is. There's a lot of talk about decommissioning. There's a lot of talk about environment. We love to engage in the green life cycle conversations. In Australia, it's really starting to happen. And I suppose we've also seen then opportunities for pipe coating removal in that same region, particularly in Australia. So we're engaging with a couple of the key players there to see if there's an opportunity to bring a coating removal system and set up a plant in the Western Australia region, and then start to service the decommissioned pipelines that are coming ashore. And Nick is probably best placed to talk about the CRM technology that we have currently in Decom.
Thanks, Sean. So the CRM technology actually was originally developed, as Sean mentioned earlier on, for prime surplus pipe and for pipe mills. So what you typically had is you had perfect pipe. So it would either come out of a pipe mill and it was perfect in the sense of the steel, and the coating just wasn't up to scratch. They have a 2 to 5% defect ratio. So our Egyptian pipe mill that we sold to, they were just basically dealing with their defect pipes, hugely valuable pipe, very difficult to decoat in their way. They'd often have to reverse it through their machine, which is downtime and very expensive and heat-based, whereas also cold-based methods are very environmentally and also financially efficient. We moved on to, with our Dutch joint venture, cleaning mostly prime surplus pipes, so pipe that's, you know, either come from a pipe mill and they don't want to clean it themselves because they can't be bothered to sell it into the market, or pipe that's maybe gone out and was meant to be laid, was the excess, or a pipeline moved and suddenly there's 10 kilometers spare. It can't be relayed as an oil and gas pipeline. It's left the field, it's in the field, it can't be used that, but it's perfectly good pipe still. And primarily that will go into the piling industry, sometimes water pipelines or be recoated, but primarily back into piling. So what happened is we remove the coating and effectively call it unlocking the value of the steel, so you can see the quality of the steel that you get after that. During that period of time, we were lucky enough to have the opportunity to clean a wide range of decommissioned pipe and smaller jobs that was coming up. There was actually quite a lot of it out of the Mediterranean, out of Cyprus, that was sitting on yards in Cyprus. It's more challenging. So it is commercially was difficult to get right, because it meant we had to make a lot of changes to the machine to deal with. For example, you might have dents and dinges. It wasn't looked after as carefully. So it's been damaged by, you know, was instead of being worth 2,000-3,000 euros per ton, it was worth, you know, 200 euros per ton. So people were throwing it around with forklifts. You end up with dents and damages. We had to clean that in a way that we had to adjust our hydraulic brushes, for example, to be able to get down and really clean in those holes to make sure we got rid of it all, or enough of it so that it could be reused in piling. So get it tested for less than a certain percentage of FBE. If you want to recoat it, it's got to be less than 5 microns. If you want to reuse it in piling, depending on the local regulations, it's got to be between a certain level of microns. So we did a lot of work on that. And then, to be perfectly honest, we were distracted with the rapid growth of the saws, and we were running our joint venture, building a new machine. But what we found now is, as we've understood the market, whilst we're still focused on the prime surplus, we're still focused in the US. There's a huge market for that, and also with pipe mills, there's a huge market. We're focused on the opportunity for what we call the green life cycle, and we presented on this a few times at different places, where what we're saying is, previously, and I'm sure all of you have seen this in a certain way, particularly in the North Sea, and again, I come from an outside of this industry, everything was very broken up. So people were, and it frustrated me as an accountant, that people were bidding for the decommissioning work and doing their calculations on the cutting and removal, and then going, well, we'll hand over the contract and they'll deal with it. And then a contractor for onshore was bidding for the work. And actually, when you had the two conversations, what you very quickly realized was, because it was cheaper to shear everything offshore, you were saving money on that one side, but you were massively increasing your costs and reducing your opportunities for a green solution. Because actually what you've done is, once you shear it, you can't inspect it, you damage the integrity of the pipe, you can't reuse it, you can't inspect it for norms, you can't recycle it as piling. So what we're trying to do is an education piece to say, look, obviously we want you to use our kit, but regardless, you need to think it holistically. And I think that is happening, but where we're coming into it is, we now see and know that we can be involved from cutting the pipe, handling it carefully on the back deck. That's really key, because as soon as you dent and damage this pipe, you increase the cost of cleaning it and you decrease your chance of reusing it. So clean cut it, bring it back on deck, bring it on shore, handle it carefully, and then we can remove the coatings and you can sell it back into the market. And the benefit for the piling market, you know, if you think about somewhere like Australia, the benefit for the piling market is, if you are a construction industry and you need steel for piling, you've got very little options. You've basically got to go and place an order. That's going to take you months to get that from a pipe mill. It's going to cost you a fortune, and it's going to have an absolutely huge carbon footprint. Now, we've done our own reports, but also there's big companies in the UK like Cleveland Steel that have done their own reports. It is a 97% carbon footprint saving, if you can reuse pipe. So if you can end up reusing that pipe in piling, not only is it going to be cheaper and a shorter lead time for the piling construct industry, but it's also going to reduce the carbon footprint. You can show as an operator that you've brought old product back on shore and you've managed to reuse it and save carbon footprint. We capture all the coatings, and actually the plastic that is coming off these is really, really high quality plastic. So yes, you can actually make money from it, but again, that's immaterial in terms of the actual quantum that you'll get. It helps with the financial model, but effectively the fact that you're able to recycle those coatings, and even the FBE in some circumstances can be reused as fuel. So you really are getting almost 100% waste capture. And we're now able to do that at a speed that you do that. So for us, it's an education piece to say, look, we can clean cut, we can help handle it back on deck, we can work with partners, or we can run it ourselves. And then once you're on shore, use our machine, clean it, and we'll help you get it into the market. You know, we won't do that. There are people who are very, very good steel traders who will support us doing that in every region. So yeah, that's the coating removal machine, and we kind of call it connecting the dots, you know, and creating this green life cycle. And it's about moving that saw through into that. So yeah, lovely, nice, clean, shiny pipe.
Yeah, and a key for us is just if it showed, Nick showed the picture there just before, the quality of the steel pipe. We have ensured that the surface of the steel pipe, as well as the weld, it's longitudinal, spiral, obviously seamless, is much easier, is not damaged in this process. So if we get a pipeline that is in relatively good integrity, we do appreciate that it has lived a life, and you know it has to get handled, and it's been cut, and it's been craned, and it's been transported. But if it's in reasonable good condition, we can take that pipe, remove all the coatings without damaging the actual steel integrity of that pipe. But really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us, and welcome any questions that you may have.
Wow, that was very comprehensive, gents. Thank you so much for the journey through the history of the business as well. Got a couple of questions. I'll start with one which is coming from Richard. Have any of your saws been deployed, or are they able to be deployed to horizontal cutting position by ROV, so independent from a crane, presumably with buoyancy?
Yeah. So on quite a number of occasions, we have had the saw completely buoyant on the buoyancy modules and manipulated into position via the ROV. And often in that case, it can be powered topside. We actually have a couple of projects coming up which will be ROV manipulated but powered topside, but often it's through the dirty pack in the ROV as well.
Yeah, the issue becomes, so the 12-inch is really easy. You can do the 12-inch without really increasing the footprint. The key question is how much room you've got around, because the 24-inch you require quite a lot of buoyancy. So if you've got a tight space you get into, it requires a little bit more of engineering. If you don't, then we can just stick a lot of blocks either side if you've got lots of room. The 46-inch, obviously, we haven't done that way yet. There'll be a lot of buoyancy, but I think as well, what we're doing is we're looking at developing a lighter saw as well out of aluminium as well. So that's on our radar, just to make it even easier to move around, to get into tighter spaces, particularly where you might need to get under conductors for removing it through guide frames and so on, where you've got much tighter spaces.
Yeah, very good. So what next? You know, you've gone through, you know, smaller, medium, very large saws. You've got that beautiful machine now for cleaning the coatings off pipelines. You know, what next? Is it better, sort of more refinement on the technologies that you've got, or is there another area that you're looking to sort of move into and keep your engineers busy?
Yeah, I certainly don't think we're going to go much bigger than the 46-inch. I think we're going to take a break for now. But our short-term goals is we are dedicated to the next 12 to 18 months to doubling the fleet that we have. So currently we have, as I said, 3 12-inches, 8 24s, and 1 46. We want to double that and bring that to the Asia Pac region, as well as support the North Sea region, which we're currently in. We're doing a lot of work in Africa coming up. We're obviously assessing different markets in the Gulf of Mexico. But aside from that, it's about investing in our people, building the team, offering that service where we can, you know, continuously asking the client, what can we do better to serve them? If we can just start integrating that in, as well as build a kit and you know, make small improvements as we go, I think we'll be in a pretty good shape. You know, we're big believers in sticking to what we do and do it well, as opposed to getting lost in that scale journey and then fundamentally, you know, losing the momentum that we've built. You know.
Yeah. To what size crew do you have to send out with one of these machines when they go offshore?
It really depends on client requirements. We have a lot of our guys in-house that are fully qualified offshore. Most of them are engineers by trade, and if they're not, they're the same guys that have manufactured and fitted our equipment. It can be operated by one of our guys. We can train the guys on the deck from the client, but on some projects, clients would like 2 of Decom guys per shift. So on the Deep Ocean project, we currently have 4 guys running double shifts.
Yeah. And as you say, you can operate it by WhatsApp as well, eh?
Exactly. The guys don't function offshore. They can lie in their bed on WhatsApp. Yeah.
That's that was quite a shock to me when you mentioned that one. So you're talking then about bringing, having a bigger presence in the region. What do you have in our region now? What have you got both deployed and sort of immediate plans for across the Asia Pacific region?
So we'll have 3 saws working at the end of September in region. So we'll have 1 up on the Barrow Islands, 1 in the Bass Strait, and 1 off the coast of Perth. So 2 24 inches and 12 inch through September, October. So we'll be able to put those job successes out through yourselves very shortly. So that'll be those 3, and then we envisage those 3 saws staying. And in Asia Pacific at the moment, we have 5 saws in region. Across 1 in Taiwan, working on renewables farms, and 4 in the Asia region in the Gulf of Thailand. So actually, to be honest, more than 50% of our workload at the moment is in the Asia Pacific region.
Yeah, hence Sean being based out of an apartment in Bali at the present time. Eh?
Yeah.
It just made sense,
Oh yeah. And I guess, look, if anyone's got any more questions, please put them in. Otherwise, I'll just keep chatting with the guys here. What's been the biggest? I mean, you talked in the early part of your presentation about the challenge of getting that first project across the line. Once you've cracked that, what are the other challenges that you face in terms of just getting the maximum value for your business, but also getting the maximum value and deliverable from your client for your client as well, with the technologies that you've got and with the solutions that you've got? Yeah,
getting that initial track record was a mountain. I will not make any bones about that. It was very difficult to have a company entrust us with our new kits and with often complicated projects was hard. Once we got that, and we always, in the background, we were planning for it and we knew it was coming and we wanted to be ready. But when we got it, the hardest part was just making sure our equipment was going to stand up to the scrutiny of the sector. Was going to be DNV certified. It's going to meet all its requirements in terms of fat testing. It's going to make sure there's going to be no oil leaks during operation, all the rigging, and just integrate with the vessel, the rigging crew, the crane drivers, the ROVs. And making sure that we didn't look out of place. If I'm being honest, I'm glad to say we weren't. Still a lot of things to take away, a lot of areas to improve, but that's the biggest hurdle. And I suppose now we've done that across maybe 6,000 cuts. As Nick mentioned, we've never not completed a cut. We've done multiple deployments in various locations around the world. We're pretty well used to getting set up and offering the best service for the client. We train our guys very well. Our guys are brilliant. They love what they do. We give them the right amount of ownership when they're on these projects, so they can really develop and they can do the client-facing piece. So I think we're in a really good place now. So myself and Nick intend to grow the business, not just in the products, but making sure that a customer service aspect is not lost as we grow, and especially not lost as we enter a new market.
And I think education for us is, the importance of things like this, because I've personally had a number of conversations which are almost upsetting, because what you end up doing is you're at a trade show and you talk to a project engineer and they go, I wish I'd known about this 6 months ago. We were cutting duplex and we were having real issues. And it's so disappointing to know that it's just an education piece. It's just making sure people know us, because we're past that track record. It's just making sure that people understand that we exist. So when they're looking at it and they're going, oh, how the hell are we going to deal with this? They know to come to us. We might not have the solution, might not in that specific instance, but at least we can be in the mix for that, consideration from engineers.
Yeah, And that's profile, isn't it, really? So that, that's just, as you say, that's just people knowing that you're there, knowing that you exist. Yeah, and it happens so often. It's a very an observation, I guess. It's a very fragmented industry. There's a lot of word of mouth. There's a lot of a lot of people are very familiar with dealing with the headline acts, if you like. The tier one contractors and the vessel operators who will turn up with a bunch of kit on the vessel, do the work, and then go away. And you don't always know who that kit on the vessel actually, where it came from and what it was doing. So getting that profile, getting that visibility must be a big challenge for you. Maybe, look, we haven't had any more questions come in, so I've got one more here that I'm going to ask of you. What's your highlight project? So far from what you've done. If you had to pick one out of all of that lot, which one would it have been that you'd say, or that's the one that really, when I'm talking to people and it's the first one I want to talk about, which one would it be?
For me, I think I know which one Nick's going to pick, so I'll probably pick a separate one. For me, a highlight project was quite recently where last minute we were asked by Deep Ocean to go on BP Don Miller in the North Sea. We were challenged with cutting, 16-inch OD, 30 mil wall thick X65 pipeline. There was multiple cuts to make. The pipeline was semi-buried. They'd considered other options. They were really putting their faith in us, and this was on before we actually deployed the 46, so it was a first project with them. We sent one of our guys with a 24-inch saw. We made 18 plus cuts with 1 or 2 blades. Each cut, no issues. The cut times were in single digits, if not just into double digits. And the reports we got back were just fantastic, both from performance of kit, reliability from the ROVs, being able to operate it, and just from health and safety, vessel time, and just getting the job done. And then that really bounced us on to the next project with the 46-inch. When I got on the vessel with our guys, all the guys knew the kit. They loved the project. They loved to see the 24-inch saw was back on. So for me, that gave us a lot of credibility with the client. Yeah. What's yours, Nick?
Oh, mine's the Havran one, definitely. 1,000 meters deep, mooring chain, umbilical, new clamps for cutting the RovCon connector. It's a salesman's dream, because one job I can cover off everything. So sort of being a non-engineer, it makes it easy for me to go out and say tick box, tick box, tick box. ROV dirty work pack at depth, cutting 3 different materials off the coast of Africa. It gives people the confidence that you can do and handle everything that's thrown at you.
I can see that one, yeah. We've had one question come in. We'll ask this one and then we'll have to close. So this has come from Andrew. Do you have a kit for cutting decom products at quayside, like an excavator attachment saw, so something you've done? And if so, what's the biggest you can, what's the largest one you can do that with?
Yeah, so we started the saw end of the business to be an excavator attachment. So we went through the process of quick release couplings, powered to the excavator, radio controlled units, all the feedback to the cab operator. We've just won a project in Australia for doing just that on a 12-inch saw on an excavator, cutting multiple pipelines. So the short answer is yes, we can do from 2-inch right up to 24-inch. We probably could offer a larger version if the requirements met it, but we could quite comfortably convert a 12-inch saw or a 24-inch saw into a excavator mounted attachment. Yeah.
Brilliant. Look, we could probably talk for a little bit longer here, guys, but we said we'd stick for an hour, and we're on the mark there. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was really interesting just to see the journey the business has gone through, to hear the stories of the technologies, and just get a sense of what it is that you do, and see, quite honestly, just to see the passion on your faces in terms of what it is that you do as well. It says a lot, I think, that you clearly are enjoying the work that you're doing as well. It's not just, oh, we're doing this. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us and asking the questions as we've gone along. It's been great to get a few questions come in from everybody. This will be available as a viewable recorded webinar on our system in a couple of days or weeks' time. One final question then, just because it's always good to close out with these things. how do people get a hold of you once all of this lot is, and they go away and think, oh man, we want one of them? How do what's the best contact details?
Yeah, well, mine is just Sean, SEAN, at decommissioning.com. We put a lot of our case studies and projects and stuff we're working on our LinkedIn page. So often to keep updated, our LinkedIn or our website is the best place to get us. Yeah.
Superb. Brilliant. Look, thank you very much, gentlemen. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And everybody else also, thank you very much for joining us. See you later.
Thanks, Francis. Appreciate it.
Bye.